Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily, a monumental ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States. What the justices rule on the Biden administration's vaccine mandate, and the deadly Michigan school shooting. What a new civil lawsuit alleges led up to the shooting. Plus,
it's like we have no voice here. It took for something of this magnitude for us to have a voice.
Civil rights attorney Benjamin Cump backs a family's wrongful death lawsuit after a 13-year-old Florida boy is killed. But first, the latest in the deadly Waukesha Christmas Parade investigation.
In fact, Mr. Brooks could have just simply stopped the car to avoid striking anybody or any object, correct?
Correct.
Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. The deadly Waukesha Christmas Parade suspect will now head to trial after a judge rules there is enough evidence against accused Daryl Brooks. This comes as 71 new charges are added to Brooks' criminal complaint. He now faces a total of 77 charges in the December attack. 6 people were killed and more than 50 were injured in November 21st of last year, when a red Ford Escape SUV drove onto a blocked-off road in the middle of the annual Christmas parade. The driver ran over dozens of people after breaking through barricades along the parade route. Brooks is charged with 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 6 counts of hit and run resulting in death, 2 counts of felony bail jumping, 2 counts of misdemeanor battery, and 61 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. At a hearing on Friday, Brooks appeared in the courtroom in a red-orange jumpsuit, sitting alongside his attorneys, hands in his lap, waiting to hear if there was sufficient evidence for the case to go to trial. One of the officers who witnessed the incident firsthand testified to seeing Brooks driving that SUV.
Were you positioned directly in front of the vehicle?
Yes, I was.
And what happened?
The vehicle continued driving into me. I'd say it was a slow speed at that point. Eventually, the vehicle made contact with me, and I was pounding on the hood, yelling for it to stop, which it did not.
Could you see anybody inside the vehicle?
At that point, I could not see the person real clearly, but as the vehicle continued pushing through me, I was, my position changed to the side of the vehicle where I was directly outside the driver's side window.
The driver of that vehicle, do you see that person present in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
Could you identify him, please?
He's sitting at the defense table dressed all in red.
You know the name of that person?
Daryl Brooks.
And you positively identify Mr. Brooks as the driver of the vehicle at this point?
Yes, I do.
There is ample evidence on each of those to show, sir, that you probably committed a felony or felonies within the jurisdiction of this court. And based upon that, I am going to bind you over for trial.
Brooks' arraignment is set for February 11th. Joining us today is legal analyst Dina Dahl and Terry Austin. Dina, as the charges begin to stack against Brooks, what do you predict will happen in this case? Trial or plea deal?
I imagine this will go to trial because the prosecution, because of how horrible this crime was and how important it was to the community, doesn't really have much of an incentive to offer him a plea deal. And they have a lot of evidence as well. And death penalty is off the table here. Wisconsin doesn't have it. It's just mandatory life. So there wouldn't really be much they would offer him anyway. So although he may want a deal, I don't see the prosecution offering it.
Yeah, the defense at best maybe try to knock off 1 or 2 of those charges, maybe more, but with 77 charges, that's quite a lot. Terry, thus far we have not heard any evidence of a motive in this case. Do you think we will see a mental illness defense?
I do, absolutely. You know, Wisconsin law allows someone to claim mental illness if at the time of the act he lacked the capacity to appreciate right from wrong. And we heard during the preliminary hearing that Detective Casey testified that the defendant failed to stop even though he and other officers were trying to get it to stop. So I think the defense is going to claim that the defendant did not understand what was going on. His mother actually, Brian, claimed also that he suffered from mental illness and that the system never offered to help him. So I absolutely expect that we'll see the defense claiming mental illness and try to use that as a defense.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting defense, especially in a case like this, because what else could be the reason for he doing such a horrible, horrible act to so many people? It may be something that actually is successful in this type of case. But of course, we'll continue to cover this trial or potential trial and give you the updates as they continue. Switching now to New Hampshire, to a case that's gained national attention, that of missing 7-year-old Harmony Montgomery, as the focus now moves to the state's child welfare agency. Harmony was reported missing late last year by her mother, who had lost custody of the girl because of substance abuse issues. She was last seen in 2019. The child was in the custody of her father, Adam Montgomery. He told police he gave Harmony back to her mother. He faces charges arising from how he allegedly treated Harmony, including second-degree assault for allegedly punching her in the eye in 2019, as well as endangering the welfare of a child and interfering with custody. The reward for information leading to Harmony has reached $112,000, and the New Hampshire Division of Children, Youth, and Families is now under investigation. At the tail end of a COVID-19 press briefing Wednesday, the state's governor said the agency is, quote, pulling out every stop they can to assist in the investigation. And a Florida man accused of killing his wife, 3 children, and the family dog will wait a few months longer for his case to go to trial, after it was delayed again at a hearing on Wednesday. Anthony Todds is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of animal cruelty for allegedly killing his wife, Megan, their children, 13-year-old Alec, 11-year-old Tyler, and 4-year-old Zoe, and the family dog, Breezy, at their Celebration, Florida home in January 2020. Federal authorities and local deputies were at Todd's home to arrest him on insurance fraud charges related to his physical therapy business. While there, they found the bodies of his wife, children, and the dog wrapped in blankets. Investigators believe they have been stabbed and given toxic amounts of Benadryl. Todd confessed to killing in 3 separate interrogations. In jailhouse letters, he later blamed his wife for the slayings. The trial was set to begin next week, but after the sudden death of Todd's attorney and a medical issue on Todd's end, it was postponed. A new trial date will be set at a hearing on January 21st. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, a civil lawsuit filed against the district in the deadly Michigan high school shooting. But first, a 13-year-old's life cut short. How civil rights attorney Ben Crump is getting involved in the death of Stanley Davis III.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Famed civil rights attorney Ben Crump and Associates assists in a wrongful death lawsuit after a 13-year-old Florida boy dies just 1 day after Christmas. It happened in Boynton Beach, Florida, when Stanley Davis III, also known as SJ, was riding his dirt bike on a highway. An officer tried to pull Davis over, saying the boy was driving erratically. That's when Davis lost control of his bike. He died as a result of the crash. The name of the officer involved has not yet been released, but Ben Crump associate Sue Ann Robinson tells me he has been involved in a couple high-speed pursuits that have resulted in death. What is that litigation going to look like, and what are you asking is done to the officer?
We're asking for the officer to be taken off duty. I think when an officer has been involved in multiple pursuits that have ended in fatalities, and investigations are ongoing, then he shouldn't be on the street. He shouldn't be permitted to continue to be in a position to endanger other people in the community. And unfortunately, the Boynton Police Department has permitted this officer to continue to be on active duty, to be on the street, and it resulted in him interacting with Stanley Davis III on the day that we're all here discussing. And the issue with respect to pattern and practice is just that. If this officer has been involved in multiple pursuits that's ended in death, why is he still out there? Why is he on the road while these investigations are pending? He shouldn't be.
I also spoke with SJ's father, Stanley Davis Jr., who says his son was well beyond his years and that the department should be held responsible.
They gave very little information, so I don't know as much. I'm just seeking for him to be held accountable. At the end of the day, like I said, this isn't the first time. This isn't the second time. This is the third time resulting in the death, but there's been many more other incidents that he's been involved with. Me being from this community, I know him, see him every day. So at the end of the day, it's just time for change. Like at the end of the day, it's like if it don't stop now, it's gonna continue. And unfortunately, it had to be my child to be the sacrifice. But at the end of the day, I feel like this should be the last child that had to sacrifice their life because of his negligence.
In a statement, the Boynton Police Department says it will conduct an internal affairs investigation. The Florida Highway Patrol and a county medical examiner are also performing separate investigations. Let's bring back legal analyst Dina Dahl and Terry Austin to discuss the civil lawsuit on behalf of Stanley Davis III. Terry, how troubling is it that this officer has a history of chases that result in at least a few deaths, at least according to Crump?
You know, Brian, it's extremely troubling. He was involved in a 2012 high-speed chase that killed a black man and another high-speed chase in 2016 that ended up killing a 5-year-old boy. So you really have to question whether or not he's reckless and whether he needs to continue working on the police force. You know, witnesses actually said they did not see this teenager driving erratically. And I actually viewed a security camera, and he did not seem as though he was driving erratically. So the police are investigating it. They say there's no dash cam. But look, it's a tragic case no matter how you look at it.
Now, Dina, what facts do you think we are missing and we need in this investigation to get to a point of transparency and accountability?
Well, I think it's important why he was following him to begin with. Like Terry said, I also watched the video. I don't see him driving reckless at all. So if that's the case and he was just, basically chasing after this boy, that's going to be important. Also, in terms of his other traffic stops, does he have a history of stopping people, for false reasons? In addition to those other fatalities, that can be important. On the defensive side, what's also important is how well did this boy know how to ride this dirt bike? Evidently, he had just gotten it as a Christmas gift the day before. They could argue that he just lost control because he didn't know it that well. So his history, how often he rode this kind of vehicle, could be important as well.
Absolutely. As we get more information in that investigation, we will report it here on Law&Crime Daily. Thank you both. And on the heels of her guilty conviction, former Silicon Valley titan Elizabeth Holmes will spend the next 9 months a free woman while out on bail. This after a judge set her sentencing for late September. Holmes was the founder and CEO of Theranos, a blood testing company once believed to have revolutionary technology. On January 3rd, after a months-long trial and a week of jury deliberation, Holmes was found guilty of 4 fraud-related charges. They stem from Holmes defrauding investors and lying about Theranos' capabilities. Holmes was acquitted of all of the charges related to patients involved in testing at Theranos. The former CEO faces up to 80 years behind bars, a max of 20 years per count. Her sentencing is set for September 26, more than a year after her trial began. Coming up on Law&Crime Daily, a monumental ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States. What that means for President Biden's vaccine mandate. Plus, a civil lawsuit filed against the Oxford High School district. What court documents allege accused shooter Ethan Crumbley brought to school. Welcome back. A new lawsuit is filed in Michigan against the Oxford High School district, where a student opened fire, killing 4 classmates and injuring 7 others back in November. The lawsuit says administrators put students in danger by downplaying the actions of accused gunman Ethan Crumbley ahead of the shooting. It also alleges Crumbley posted, quote, countdowns and threats of bodily harm and brought a severed bird head to school in a jar. At the time, the school emailed parents saying there was no threat to the building or students. The morning of the shooting, a teacher saw concerning drawings of a gun, bullet, and a person bleeding on the 15-year-old suspect's desk. His parents, James and Jennifer Crumbley, who are facing related manslaughter charges, were called into the school about the concerning drawings. They are accused of ignoring warning signs. Ethan pled not guilty to first-degree murder, assault with intent to murder, and terrorism causing death charges at his arraignment on Wednesday. Next up will be a status conference set for next week to determine a later date for a hearing. Back again to break down the civil litigation surrounding the tragedy in Oxford High School is legal analyst Dina Dahl and co-host Terry Austin. Terry, can you explain what the civil lawsuit is claiming and what it needs to prove in order to be successful?
Yes, this is a wrongful death action, which actually I expected. The plaintiff has to demonstrate negligence and basically say that the defendant caused the death of another. And here there are multiple signs that the school might have been negligent and that Ethan Crumbley would have taken some kind of action that resulted in someone's death. The school either missed it or dismissed it. And there were so many signs, the computer searches, the disturbing drawings, the bird's head in a jar, and even the social media posts. And frankly, they failed to dismiss him from school. And I think that was the biggest mistake. So the list goes on. The suit demands $100 million, and I expect this will be the first of many suits.
Yeah. Now, Dina, I understand the major difference is the parents purchased the gun, but with allegations like this and the parents being charged criminally, could the potentially see the administrators in the school charged too?
So the difference in criminal and civil negligence is essentially, did the person act unreasonable or reckless? I think Terry's right. There's quite a lot of evidence that the school acted unreasonable. But in terms of reckless, I actually think an important piece of information would be whether or not the school asked the parents if he owned a gun. I don't think that's come out yet. One, it seems that would be a very reasonable question. Was it reckless for them not to have asked that question? Here he is, depicted gun. He's searching for ammunition. Again, we don't know if they asked or if they were perhaps even lied to about the parents. So more will come out, but that is the distinction we'll be looking at.
All right, we'll see as that information comes in. Thank you both. This week on Prime Crime, a case that captivated the nation. Host Jesse Weber takes on the infamous Chris Watts story. He joins us now with a look ahead to this week's episode. Jesse?
Hey there, Brian. On our next episode, we tackle the infamous Chris Watts story. Now, this is the Colorado man who publicly pleaded for his family's safe return when they suddenly disappeared. But as the investigation played out, it became clear he was holding back something big.
I have no idea where they went. And it's just earth-shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from.
His behavior during the porch interview was really interesting. He vacillates from being really calm verbally to being really fidgety and kind of rocking back and forth. That rocking shows the uneasiness.
Bella was going to start kindergarten.
He talks in the past tense about one of his daughters. The way that he talks about his children is as if he's grieving them.
And it's like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
He kept repeating, I just want them back, I just want them back. And there was no real plea for their safety. What happened to them? There were no tears, there was no emotion. He came off very cool.
From his media interviews to a strange encounter with a neighbor and, of course, his police interrogation, you can watch it all unfold on Law and Crime.
Thanks, Jesse. You can catch this week's episode of Prime Crime Friday night at 5:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. When we come back, the Supreme Court makes a ruling on the Biden administration's vaccination mandate. How the ruling affects you after the break. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. The leader of the Oath Keepers is arrested and charged with seditious conspiracy as the January 6th investigation unfolds. The FBI arrested Stuart Rhodes, leader of the far-right Oath Keepers militia, on Thursday. 10 others were also arrested. These charges mark the first for the some 700 people accused of being involved in last year's insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. And the Supreme Court halts the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine or test mandate for private companies with more than 100 employees. On Thursday, justices ruled the administration overstepped in attempting to impose the OSHA rule that would require all employees must be vaccinated or submit a negative COVID-19 test weekly. At the same time, SCOTUS ruled that vaccination mandate will stand for most healthcare workers. Right now, the Supreme Court has a conservative majority. Following the ruling, President Biden made a statement calling for states and businesses to voluntarily impose a vaccine mandate. Dina, how did the majority get to their decision, and where does that leave private businesses with over 100 employees?
Essentially, what they said was that this regulation didn't address occupational hazards, that this was really a public health issue, and so wasn't applicable for OSHA. They did allow it for healthcare workers. There's a precedent for that. Healthcare workers have had vaccine mandates prior to COVID, and they're accepting federal money, Medicaid money. So if they're going to be willing to accept Medicare, they can require vaccination. The court did allow that the government could come back and more narrowly tailor it, maybe perhaps to factory workers or workers that have to be in closed spaces. We'll see if that happens. Where it leaves the companies for now is they're going to have a patchwork of state and city laws, which is going to be difficult for national companies to apply any kind of vaccine mandate that they may now want.
Now, Terry, the dissent obviously dissented, but how did they view the case?
So Justices Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan all dissented. They said that the conservative majority seriously misapplied the applicable legal standard. And at issue here, as Dina said, was whether OSHA applied and whether or not OSHA had the power to impose the requirements under this 1970 law. The dissent said yes, and the majority said no, and of course the majority ruled. So we see here that the dissent made a case, but it wasn't a big enough case to convince the rest of the court. So the Biden administration does not have the power to do this.
All right, we'll see how this legal battle continues. As Dina said, it could come back with some narrowly tailored statements or information, but we'll see how it plays out. Thank you for joining us here at Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.